Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and last time we learned a little bit more about what it's like to be the Water Guardian, and of course picked up some additional skills for Legion as well. So hopefully we will find that now with a few dark abilities, Legion will be an even more powerful member for our group. However, we of course took out two of our party members, and so now if we're moving on here, I suppose we probably should fill in those two remaining spots. As for who it's been the longest since we last played with, or who is most in need of some time with the rest of the group, I think let's throw Zach back in here, and maybe Vern as well. A little bit of a recreation of our Chapter 2 party, with the exception, of course, of Legion. So let's head on out here. There are, of course, additional enemies that we could, say, fight and still learn some things from for Legion, but for the moment, I think we'll make more of a point of moving on into perhaps the southern continent, and at least against these skeletons, who are perhaps preventing us from doing that immediately, what is the best course of action? They do have a reasonable amount of defense here, so Zach might actually find that, say, going with something like a physical attack might not be terribly effective. However, not that he has many alternatives here, does make a huge difference whether it's non-elemental or whether it's air. So let's say go for a crescendo slash so that at least over time this will become more powerful. He is still enough damage though. Oh, he is using the Bone Slicer. Not his most recent weapon, no. However, it is more effective against undead, so as it turns out, that is suitable for this set of circumstances. Might have even been in Saul's dungeon when we were last using Zach, that might be why. Vern, of course, has plenty of abilities that are good against undead, whether that be Smite Evil or Disrupt Undead. Take your pick here. This should be our strongest skill, I would think. More than enough damage there. And then Legion, probably best to either go with a Gem Explosion or maybe even a Tsunami, depending on whether these guys are weak to Fig or Water. The answer is neither, but Tsunami could hit both these guys simultaneously, so maybe we give that a shot. And the damage is enough, and that is in fact enough experience for Vern to level up. And it's been a while since we used Zach or Vern, so it is probably worth a second here to check what skills and perhaps even more likely what items we could put on, because I know that Zach had a new ability, Sin Strike, that we were trying to learn from a chest plate. However, we did not quite get to the point where he was able to master that. He's one battle away from mastering Purity, so it might be worth it to just hold on to this for the time being. But let's head back to the Save Crystal, actually, and make a point of picking up other items that we might want for these guys. Because I think there is the new chest plate, which actually Mardek has in his inventory right now. This is the one that gives Sin Strike, which is a new active skill for Zach. So we'll switch to that as soon as he's done learning Purity there. Not that that's a super high priority, but he's one battle away, so why not? And then I think we have several new weapons for Zach, or at least one. The question is mostly, where did we put it? And it looks like it's here. 2 moons, actually Vern had it. An exotic weapon with crescent hook-like blades at either end, so it is a double sword for Zach. It gives coup de grace. So we'll have to check this out. And that would also be an item that we would probably want to put on soon. It's just that, like we were saying before, the Bone Slicer is effective down here against a bunch of undead, so maybe we hold off just a minute before swapping over to that. However, we do have several slots that we could probably throw in as well. It's already mastered everything on the Blood Opal. So what new things we'd be able to put on Zach? And in fact, I think what we're going to do next is likely head on over to Crimson Peak once more and see if we can find our way into the Fire Temple, in which case having things like Fire Pendants could be very useful. So let's throw one of those on. Zach is also an air elemental character, meaning that by default he will have 20% air resistance, but 20% fire weakness. So even with one Fire Pendant and the Magic Fire reaction equipped, he will still take some damage even from fire spells. So it might even be worth throwing on a second one there. Or say, swapping over and putting the Flame Mail on Zach so that he can learn Resist Fire, because he's in more need of the fire resistance than Vern is. We could throw on a Fire Pendant on Vern as well, and we were, of course, at least a while back, experimenting with what it might be like to boost Vern's spirit as much as possible. And I'm thinking that maybe we throw on the Eclipse Amulet, because that is so strong. It gives Evasion, which is a reaction that Vern has started to learn but not yet mastered, so there's some use there. Gives +2 Spirit, which is just as much as Vern was getting from the Elortian Amulet. but this also has a bunch of light and dark resistance and better defenses and magic defense, so I think this is basically just an objectively better version of this item here. So that seems good. The one reservation I have with swapping over the Flame Mail to Zac is, of course, that Vern is partway through mastering this, so maybe, like what we were talking about with Zac, is that we take a little bit of time to master this ability first, and then we'll swap it over. Zac, of course, does also still have to learn the Sin Strike as well, and he's not very close to doing that. So maybe between those two things, that'll be what dictates when we swap over from Zac using the Snake Mail into the Flame Mail, and hopefully those things line up. Other than that, though, Vern, I suppose you don't necessarily need to have the Fire Pendant on right now, but it might be an opportunity for you to start to get closer to mastering the Magic Fire reaction, because ultimately, we're talking about wanting to take off the Flame Mail. And then I thought we picked up some new swords for Mardek, one of which was the Aeropolitan Scimitar, yes. The other being the Fish Slayer. I suppose that Vern does already have an Aeropolitan Scimitar of his own, so maybe we don't necessarily have a new sword for him to use right now, but we could consider having either Mardek or Vern use this Fish Slayer, because of course it's a sword and either one of them is capable of equipping it. And then I'm just taking a look at Mardek here and seeing things like the Lapis Lily that we put on previously in order to have some water resistance, which is maybe not terribly relevant for Mardek either, if we are, again, looking to head to a fire area next. So let's throw on a Fire Pendant for him as well. He, of course, I believe has already mastered the Magic Fire reaction, but just to get some passive 50% fire resistance is quite useful still. And we also saw that Mardek recently mastered the Dark reaction from this shield, and therefore we could say swap back over to the light one if we prefer that. They are very similar. They both boost Spirit by 1, they both have 3 physical and magic defense, and give a little bit of light resistance or a little bit of dark resistance. The Empowers Dark versus Empowers Light, again, doesn't do anything, so that might have been the best case for the light shield, would have been, well, Mardek has some light abilities, whereas he does not have any dark abilities, so could have been the tiebreaker, but I think for the most part, at least at this very moment, we're expecting more dark enemies than we are light enemies, so let's keep this on for now. And then for the last person, Legion, you likewise probably no longer need the Water Pendant. It'd be good at some point to master this ability, yes, no question, but it could be worth throwing on a Fire Pendant for you as well, so let's do that. Then the other thing is I believe you've now mastered the plus 20% magic damage on the Feather Crest, and that is a very powerful reaction at that. So if anyone has not yet learned that, then that is probably worth throwing on there, and Vern has not. Say, what about Mardek? Have you mastered it yet yourself? You have not, and this would affect how much Mardek can heal. And I think that that is something we're probably going to use more regularly than Vern's Green Lightning. So let's actually prioritize that, and then we'll just put Skull Helm on Vern. Okay. And I think that almost covers everything, except Zac could use one more accessory here, and we could even throw on a second Flame Amulet, because, like we were saying, he's not yet at 100% fire resistance. However, there are probably some other abilities that he could learn from some items, like some other status immunities, like Purity. Let's take a quick look there. Insomnia, not sure if he has mastered that yet. Or even Antibody? Let's take a look. He has mastered Antibody. As for Insomnia, he's mastered that as well. We could even put on a Ruby for plus 2 strength, which I think might not be a bad idea, because although it doesn't give any of those immunities, which can be helpful, in particular when we can anticipate that we're going to see a lot of one in particular, getting plus 2 strength on a character that is almost exclusively a physical attacker, I think will be useful. Of course, Ruby does also give a passive plus 3 strength, so across those two things, that should be a nice difference maker. So let's head on out here. And like I said, at some point, we could theoretically come back here in order to master up even more of those abilities. Because there are a few that we picked up, yes, but there are several more. The more difficult ones, I'd say, that we did not get the chance to learn. However, we have bigger and better things to move on to here, for the moment at least. That being that, well, there's a crystal for us to try to track down. So, let's head on back to the Warport, and remember, now that we have the Gold Warport Pass, we can just walk on through. No need to purchase a ticket, no need to answer any questions. No issues there. In fact, if we try to speak to one of these guys, I see you have a Gold Warport Pass there, sir. Feel free to pass by me as if I don't exist, without even saying hello. I'll try not to cry too much inside. I'm sorry, security number 3. And no signs of Clavis or anything like that. Remember, I think the first time we went through here, we had a brief appearance, but no Keystone lectures this time around, thankfully. However, of course, we have taken a Keystone from the Water Temple, and perhaps on our way to taking another one from the Fire Temple. Thanks for using our services free of charge, sir. I can't take your gold warport pass out of your grubby little hands due to our policies and all, but rest assured that if I could, I'd ram it forcibly up your intensely tight but monstrously fat arse. Good day. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now that we are on the southern continent, let's head back to the volcano, Crimson Peak. And I suppose we can heal up just in case. And last time we were here, we had what was not the most ideal of teams. I think if I recall, it was a combination of Vern, Solar, and who was the last person with us? I think largely Donovan. So that meant a combination of fire damage dealers, which was not terribly effective against a bunch of people with a bunch of fire resistance, and some physical attackers, which on some occasions was helpful against Amberistals, and on other occasions not as helpful against enemies like the Fire Opals. So how do we fare this time round? Zack is also a physical attacker, and that's largely what Vern is as well. I think Legion is going to be the big difference maker here, though, because we learned several water skills in the Water Temple. So hopefully Legion can help carry the team in that way. So for now, with Zack, we can Crescendo Slash, and who would we best do that on? Probably the Amberistal. And it's not quite enough damage here to take it out in one hit, and it will go next for Flame, but that will, of course, heal Vern, with him wearing that special Flame armor. And for you, we could go with a Green Lightning if we really wanted to go the magic route. However, I think we probably do want to take out this Amberistal. You might have enough damage, Vern, to take out a Fire Opal before it next takes its turn. But we could, say, go with a Tsunami here. And I'm assuming, yes, take out both in one turn with Legion. And that is what's going to be so huge for us. As well, Mardek has the new Water Sword, which should make Mardek a powerful attacker too. So there's Zack mastering Purity as anticipated, which means that now we could, say, swap on over to the Snake Mail, which I'm pretty sure has higher defense and maybe even magic defense as well. Pretty sure we were putting this on when we were in Saul's dungeon because we were deliberately trying to stack up that dark resistance. But the Snake Mail has, like I said, 6 rather than 4 defense as well as 2 magic defense. 100% resistance to poison is not bad. A little bit of vitality and agility as well. Yeah, that's helpful for sure. But the primary things we're looking for here will be the Sin Strike reaction, and actually, Zack has not yet mastered minus 10% physical defensive reaction, so let's put that on too. That's a bit alarming because of course we've had Zack for a long time and plenty of opportunity for him to have learned that, but apparently did not do so. Let's also throw on the Magic Fire, and well, we would sort of like for him to get the +2 passive skill as well. Say if we took off something like Locomotion for paralysis resistance and put on that strength instead. Don't think we're going to see too much in the way of paralysis in here. As for others, Burn, we definitely want to have Resist Fire on. That is kind of the entire point of you wearing this chestplate right now. We want Zack to learn that ability soon, so you got to master that up as soon as possible. Legion does still have room to master more abilities here, but as for right now, doesn't have the items to learn that, except let's just make sure, yeah. Almost forgot to put on Resist Fire for Vern. That's big too. Legion, you're going to have that as well. That should be just about it for you in terms of new things. Mardek, do we want to swap anything around here? Spirits versus undead. There was, I believe, one kind of undead enemy we ran into in this area. Maybe that's reason enough to throw on Quarry Undead, or perhaps the more versatile critical chance. Let's go with that. And then Mardek, you may have leveled and gotten an RP since we last looked at this, because now we could throw on, say, 10% damage resistance, and it's not bad. Do we expect more light or dark? Probably dark in this area. And then I think we'll continue to pass on the soaks. Those are not quite as strong as they were back in Chapter 2. There is the magic offensive reaction that we picked up on the helmet that we gave to Mardek, so again, that can also affect heals, so that's why that's significant on him. Let's swap over water to fire, and then unfortunately can't quite fit on something else there. And Mardek, we do still have double gold going. It might be useful to, say, put you back on double AP, because you were working on that for a while and you're a little more than halfway through. We were using Vim for the zombification resistance back in Saul's dungeon ever so briefly. But even if we get rid of everything except for double gold, you're still not going to be able to throw on double AP. So I'm thinking we probably swap off the Moonstone Ring and put on an Evening Star if we have it in our inventory right now. However, we may not. I don't think we do. So in that case, I'm sorry, Mardek. Either we double back to pick it up at the Save Crystal, which is not far away. Tell you what, that's probably worthwhile. Just 1 second. That way Mardek can get close to mastering what is one of the most powerful abilities in the game. I don't know where we put that item, though, because I would have thought it was in Mardek's inventory. Maybe on Legion, actually? Legion, we might have been considering using a Thalma Elemental Gem Explosion, which I believe might be something you can do with that Evening Star. But who took it? It wasn't Legion, actually. It was Gloria. So the Evening Star, just to double check here, is in fact a gemstone. So that could be a route we could take. We could go with a Thalma Elemental, which again is that star sign that you're seeing in the background there, for the Gem Explosion on Legion, if we say were to swap over the Candriathope. Legion is close to mastering plus 20% experience, so I think maybe we hold off there for the time being. Let's also make a point of picking up the Evening Star here. Maybe once Mardek has mastered double AP, which will be a while from now, but still, that might be a time to, say, swap on that for the Candriathope, or maybe throw on a Sapphire instead, in order to get a Water Elemental Gem Explosion, which could be good, given how we're in a fire area now. Legion, however, does of course have access to several water spells at this point, so maybe that's not strictly necessary. Let's head on up, though. And I don't think we actually found the Fire Temple in the previous time in which we were in Crimson Peak. However, we heard the Hermit say that, yes, it is definitely here. So I'm thinking that it is one of those doors that we unlocked, but maybe did not ultimately make our way through. So remember that Zach is on his way to mastering Sin Strike. We just put this on with the new chest plate, and it is a dark elemental attack. So let's double check as to who we ought to target with that. The answer is definitely not the Charred Bones. Can we hit a Magmazard with it, though? Let's see how much damage it does. So, the interesting thing about Sin Strike, since it's been a while, I'll remind you what it does. It inflicts damage based on the number of foes that Zach has slain. So, if you have made a point of using Zach a lot, then you will have a lot of damage with Sin Strike. We are also using, again, still his not quite as powerful Double Sword, which we probably should swap now that we are no longer fighting too many undead enemies. That might be a reason to, say, target the Charred Bones with a different type of skill, though. But for the most part, probably still worthwhile for him to swap over. Vern, I think you do. Probably attack the Charred Bones here and, say, use something like Disrupt Undead. That should be the best way to damage those guys. Legion, I'm thinking maybe you just use a Bubble Breath on this guy here. That should be enough damage. And then Mardek, let's see how much damage you do with a Water Slash against fire enemies. Also, quite a bit. So yeah, I think between all those skills there, Water Elemental, and some skills that are particularly effective against Undead with Vern, across all those things, we should be in a better place than we were last time we were in this area. So let's, however, make a point of swapping over to the 2 moons for Zach. It is 34 versus 22 base attack, so that alone is probably reason enough to use this, and does give Zach another active skill, as well as an offensive reaction that we probably should throw on. How are you looking, Zach, in terms of your RP? If we got rid of Drain HP, then we could make this happen here, which I'm thinking is probably the best way to make this happen. There are some undead enemies here, as we saw previously, but that one's not maybe his most effective one here. It was only 3 RP, though, so getting rid of that, not enough to give him enough room to put on that new reaction. Okay, this was the Caged Soul. So that is not the right answer in terms of which direction we ought to go. Pretty sure that was a dead end. Purely Magmazards here. So Coup de Grace is the other ability that we just picked up on the new Double Sword. Its damage increases based on the number of status effects on a target. Interesting. So that would seem that Zach doesn't have a lot of ways to apply those, but if, say, there was someone else to apply those status effects, and then Zach comes in with the Coup de Grace for a lot of damage there, that might be the best way to do that. As for right now, though, I think we stick to the Sin Strike, and with a higher base damage weapon, do we see any better results? The answer is no, because I believe that this skill is almost exclusively, in fact, might be exclusively based on the number of kills Zack has, and completely ignores the attack on his weapon. Which is both a good thing and a bad thing, in that against enemies that have really high defenses, that means that Zack will still be able to break through that, which can be really useful. However, against enemies that don't have very high defenses like the Magmazards, you might actually prefer to use a normal attack there. I think we would have found that if we used a typical attack that Zack would have actually dealt more damage. Here on Vern, I think we're just sticking with the normal attack here. Fortunately, still enough. Legion, Tsunami would be the easy way out, yes. However, you don't have a lot of MP, and therefore if we use these aggressively, then we're going to run out of that quite quickly. So I do wonder if maybe using half the MP with a Bubble Breath might actually be preferable. Let's try that. Still more than enough damage. Mardek, we know, should be able to take one out here. In fact, let's use a Water Slash with him. And then Zack, when it comes to Sin Strike, it's not going to deal any more damage this time, so this actually won't be enough damage here. So we will get another turn for this Magmazard here, which is perhaps not ideal, but does give us more opportunity to use some of those new skills. Not so much with Vern, but at least with Zack, getting another Sin Strike in. Okay, oh, and we also put on the Evening Star and Mardek, however, I don't think we actually reactivated double AP. We did not, so let's take off double gold, throw on double AP. And with our remaining RP here, what is our preference? Maybe we stick with plus HP and MP? Because I think numbness is the status we'd expect to see the most of here, and yet I don't believe that Mardek has any way of making himself immune to that. Okay. Let's move on, though, and see if we can find our way into that temple. So let's remind ourselves of what this place looks like. And it was a bit of a maze because there are a lot of doors here. I think that's the Hermit. This was the area with a lot of chests in it. So I think that's probably the way we want to go, up there. And I think that will lead us to another room with many more doors. So it'll be a bit of a test of our memory. I'm hoping that's the right way for us to go. Also, apparently, all the enemies in this area have ceased to exist. So I suppose that makes it a little bit quicker for us. Here they are, though. Oh, lots of temperances. In fact, 3 of them, and of different elements as well. So some Earth Elemental ones, meaning that we'll want to target them with Air Elemental attacks, and we do have some of those with Air Paladin Scimitar right now. And Zack, being Air Elemental, with the Soul Strike offensive reaction on his normal attacks, would have Air Elemental attacks as well. Then the Water one, we're going to want to use Earth. And in that case, Vern does have Green Lightning, is I believe the only source of Earth damage we have right now. So for Zack, again, technically speaking, best course of action would be to use a normal attack. However, in the interest of mastering Sin Strike as soon as possible, let's perhaps go that route instead. And I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for us to take out the Water Elemental one. So let's start with that. And then Vern, I think you stick with a normal attack here. It will be Air Elemental. That is enough. And Legion, this is a bit of a tough one too. What is the best for you to do here? Maybe a Gem Explosion? That will still be Fig Elemental. Do you guys have any Fig Elemental weakness? No, you don't. You do have 10 magic defense. I actually wondered, might we be best just using a physical attack? Not quite enough. Oh, and I missed that reaction. Poison gas hits everyone. And will it actually poison anyone, though? The answer appears to be no, fortunately. The Temperance on low HP uses regen, which means it will heal a little bit on its next turn, but I'm thinking we'll probably take it out before it gets a chance to do that. We could deliberately switch over to an Air Slash, even though Mardek is no longer using the Air Paladin Scimitar. He can guarantee that he has Air Elemental attacks that way. So that could be a way to take out this Temperance here. And then Zack, might this be the opportunity to actually get a kill with Sin Strike? It is. So the kills don't matter where they come from for Zack, but since we're trying to rack up both kills and master Sin Strike, it is nice to kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. So let's head on up here, and I think we'll find that this is the area we're looking for with all the various doors, and I don't think we've yet tried going through this door, so I suspect that that's what we're looking for, is that one in the top right corner. So let's head in that direction. Lots of charred bones. So Sin Strike not going to be a great idea against these guys because they are very resistant to dark. However, we could say use Coup de Grace, which is not going to deal a ton of damage because again it boosts its damage based on how many status effects your opponent has, and these guys have nothing. But in the interest of getting closer to mastering it, it is still a route to take, and I missed that reaction, and Zack got numbed as well. Not a good sign. Rage Cord on Zack, though, means he is no longer numbed, and is berserked, which is of course something that Zack can do himself, but the enemy did it for us, so he'll deal more damage, which is actually kind of nice. As for Vern, though, you are probably the person we are most relying on to take these guys out, in addition to Mardek. And, well, which one might we want to take out? Perhaps the one with the most HP? Legion, I suppose not to sell you short. You could, of course, use a Tsunami and probably take these guys all out in one round. Let's go with the Bubble Breath, though. Start us off here. And then Mardek, opportunity for you to Water Slash as well. And do you go for the one with slightly more HP, even though we've already dealt a little bit of damage to it? I suppose so. Here is Zack with that enraged attack, so additional damage but no control over him. He's attacking whoever he wants to attack. Only one enemy, so not much question as to who it's going to be. Burn, another Smite Evil. And Zack could probably use a heal here. So let's make a point of doing that in between battles. Okay, back up to full HP, no problem. And like I said, I think the top right corner is the direction in which we want to go this time. And is it technically down first? Yeah, over to the right would be a dead end. So we'll head on through here, and fingers crossed that we'll find this leads us into the Fire Temple. Or something like it. Save Crystal. Okay. More of the Amberistals and Fire Opals. What do we want to do on this occasion? Sin Strike might work here, because I don't think... Well, actually, the Amberistals do have some dark resistance, whereas the Fire Opals, they do as well. Wow. So, remember how I was saying that Sin Strike can be particularly effective against enemies with high defenses? So let's try that against one of these Fire Opals. They do still have that resistance, yes, but it is nearly enough damage, and Zack actually levels up there. So what we saw there was actually the Sin Strike dealt less damage because of the resistance, but the defenses did basically nothing. So Zack, with a couple more kills, probably could take those guys out with a Sin Strike. As for Vern, though, what do we want to do here? I think you probably either take out the Fire Opal here, or say target the Amberistal instead. Let's go with the Fire Opal. And if you crit, you could certainly do that. Because Legion, you could say, use a Bubble Breath on this Fire Opal here, take that one out, and then Mardek, with your Water Slash, I'm hoping you can take this guy out here. Not bad. Okay, so let's save, or at least heal, and then take a look at this area. Yeah, we've not been here yet. There are two chests in this spot, so let's perhaps go down and see what's over here. Leads to an entirely different section? Strange. Okay. And then Zack, again, we're looking to Sin Strike. The damage, again, will go up the more he kills, so in particular, if, say, you were doing a lot of grinding, maybe even in Chapter 2, then you can find that that Sin Strike could become very quickly one of your strongest, if not your strongest skill. And we haven't done too much with Zack in Chapter 2 or Chapter 3, because we've been swapping around people pretty regularly, but if Zack is one of your favorite characters, then you might find that he gets even stronger for that reason. So, let's use Smite Evil on a Charred Bones. Mardek actually got numbed there, I didn't even realize that. However, that may not be necessary for him to take a turn here. Oh, I missed that reaction, that was almost a difference maker there. So that means he won't be able to use any of his physical attacks. Could use, say, some kind of healing, but that's not terribly relevant here. It might even be worth using a Balloon Juice, because not sure Mardek's going to have many other ways to remove that. And then for Zack, you can use another Sin Strike here. And you need to get the kills, though, to boost the damage. Just taking out 90% of the enemy's HP is not enough. So in that way, we're just getting close to mastering it, but not actually boosting its long-term power. So once we have mastered it, maybe we'll use the more optimized skills for the circumstances and start taking people out with Zack directly. And there is one of those bloom juices, so good to see that after using one, we can also pick one up. And where does this lead? Area with a couple of chests. In fact, this is where the caged soul was, but maybe didn't even realize there were a couple chests down here. What will we find? A rune shield. A wooden shield engraved with magical runes. It's not too useful against physical strikes, but wards magic quite well. In fact, I believe that is what Vern is using right now. It is. And it is something that he has mastered the defensive reactions for, though I'm not sure that Mardek has. Might that be worth, say, thrown on in place of Mardek's current dark shield? Let's check. Have we given Mardek a chance to work with this? We have not. So you know what? I think that's worthwhile. He does have a lot of magic defensive reactions, but he has room to throw on a general minus 20% damage, and that's pretty versatile, so that's good to see. As for this chest here, mugwort juice for a little bit of healing. Vern doesn't have one of those yet, so we'll throw that on him. And I think this is probably a good place for us to wrap up here, and we'll continue to explore Crimson Peak. Previously, I thought we had made our way through the vast majority of it. However, we are still looking for that way to make our way into the Fire Temple, so we'll be on the lookout for that. I'll catch you next time.